September 28th, 1999, the RTS genre gets shaken up by one of the most important space games to release, Homeworld 1. Developed by Relic Entertainment and published by Sierra Studios, the game quickly became the highest rated computer game of the year, with its unique gameplay and at the time very impressive multiplayer suite. Its single-player story told a very impressive and engaging story of a space civilization travelling across the galaxy to find its original homeworld, hence the name. The Kushan, or the Taidan, depending on player choice, discover an ancient hyperspace core in an aging ship in the desert, showing them a map to their original homeworld of Higara. It also reveals a hyperspace device, and so the civilization builds this ginormous mothership in the hopes of travelling out into the stars to discover their original homeworld and where they've come from. But during the tests of this impressive vessel, their homeworld gets completely destroyed. The game's tone shifts from one of exploration to one of survival, and becomes a space opera about this great journey to discover your old homeworld and find some form of sanctuary away from the chaos. It was one of the first strategy games to implement the idea of a full 3D space. It wasn't just about moving your navies forward and backwards, it was about moving them up and down, which sounds very basic now, but at the time it was very revolutionary, and the game was heavily praised for it, getting really high scores on Metacritic. Now, in terms of the single player story, you could play around with strategy, you could do all sorts of things, it was entirely up to you how you played it. It's one of my favourite styles of game that's linear but has a lot of freedom of choice. You know, the levels were going to progress, but what you did on those levels mattered a lot, especially with the idea of continuous fleets and continuous resources meant that you kind of had to plan ahead. And if you'd already played the single player, you could really try new things as you moved through the levels and the survival of this species. In multiplayer, it was a fantastic option of just player versus player. Straightforward, you all start with your mothership and then you could research and build whatever you wanted in the hopes of destroying the opponent's motherships. And even the CPU, even the AI, was a really challenging opponent. September 16th, 2003, the now beloved title receives its sequel, Homeworld 2. It was awarded GameSpot's Best Computer Game of the Year, 2003, and again was received very well by both critics and the wider Homeworld community. It boasted incredible graphics, a new and refined multiplayer experience, and carried forward some of the great features that were in the first one, whilst innovating and adding new ones. For the single player, Homeworld 2 continues with the struggle of the Higarans. Now on their homeworld of Higara, it became canon that the Kushan was actually the race that survived. Despite the player choice, it became the Kushan. So the Higarans are adapting to their new life on their homeworld, and something goes wrong, unsurprisingly. The game starts with the building of a new mothership and being attacked by a new race called the Vagar, who lay siege to Higara, demanding that the second hyperspace core that the Higarans find to go to them. And through that adventure you meet lots of interesting and unusual races. You really start to explore the concept of the universe and of the lore, and it's just a really fascinating experience. In multiplayer, new maps, new innovations, and lots of player content. You could actually design your own logos for your fleet. You could design maps eventually with a map editor, and you could really have a lot of fun with what you could do in the game and really push the limits. Full modding support as well was available for the game, with people coming up with their own concepts and ideas of what a homeworld game could be. Really successful individuals that renovated the game and made it more refreshing. Game modes like Star Wars Warlords implementing the entirety of the Star Wars universe, and you could build Star Destroyers. There was the Complex mod, which basically added layers of research routes and trees, and you could do all sorts of interesting and unusual ship builds. Even just simple things like sound redesigns and overhauls for the way the engine lights looked. It was a really amazing game for the time. Full mod support, really fantastic and unique experience, really driven by player content, which even today is something that a lot of developers struggle with. So, hey guys, Fake Rooster here. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about this franchise because it actually was the first franchise that I really enjoyed and loved, and it was one of the first PC games that I ever played. Now you can actually, go full nostalgia and actually play these games in the remastered version available on Steam, and it's something that's really brought back a lot of memories for me, and it's been a really fun experience. I think the main draw of it is not only do you get to play through 2 fantastic campaigns, but there's full multiplayer support. The multiplayer servers for Homeworld have been off for a long time, because originally they were with GameSpy, and then when GameSpy disappeared, so did the multiplayer servers. So it's really cool to be able to jump on with people that have that same nostalgia and that same love for a franchise that you love and revisit all of it. And the best part about it is that they don't care about the timelines for multiplayer. You could have the Taidan versus the Vhagar, you could have anything you wanted, even some of the races that you barely see or that you fight ever so slightly in the Homeworld 1 campaign and Homeworld 2 campaign are available in this, so it's really, really fun. And as I say, the reason I bring this up is because as a teenager, it was the first gaming franchise that I really experienced and I really loved. When my family moved down to England in the early 2000s, all I had at the time, we were actually staying in a hotel because we didn't quite have housing yet. And all I had was this beat up laptop that my dad bought me for a birthday. And I loved that thing. I used to sit and play those old Star Wars Flash games you used to get and play on Newgrounds and all sorts of things that even today are still around. So the laptop struggled with most modern titles. And a friend of mine suggested that I check out Homeworld. And, that's where it all started for me. Games like Homeworld really brought me into a genre of games, the RTS genre, that I've been very alien to. So it brought me into the likes of Star Wars Empire at War, Rome Total War, Sins of a Solar Empire, and Stellaris, and all those titles that that come around even now. It was my first foray into multiplayer gaming, Homeworld 1. I always remember the community for Homeworld 1 was fairly small, but extremely friendly and extremely obsessed with the game and the universe. It gave me a sense of what online gaming could be, especially the more positive sides, which nowadays sometimes that can be difficult to find, unless you get a nice community, which is the way I would recommend doing it. But back then, I don't know how many players the game had, but it wasn't a lot. And it would be the same people that would meet up every evening to play rounds of Homeworld. And for me, as a younger person playing this, with a lot of older people, to be honest, they guided me through the game. They helped me figure out strategy. They'd work with me, and then you'd work together in those lobbies against people you didn't know. And it was just a lot of fun. And it's always a time of my life I look back with a certain degree of fondness. I was in a new place. Admittedly, it was England. It wasn't exactly exotic, but it was a new place. And playing those games and meeting those people online was really cool and gave me the confidence in real life to actually speak to people and make friends at school, which I really appreciated. Homeworld 2 was a game I got in this era as well. I eventually came across it secondhand somewhere like HMV or PC World or something and bought it. And it was such a step up graphically that, of course, my little laptop sputtered its way through, but it could run it just about. And the multiplayer on that was just as fun, if not more fun, because there was all sorts of strategies that you could develop with the new units that were in that. So one of the best examples is I used to play with someone that would build bombers that could fire EMP bombs and disable enemy battle cruisers, and then I would move in with boarding frigates and take over the battle cruiser. It's just little things like that, very nerdy, but very fun. And the sort of sci-fi genre of most things is something that I enjoy today, and it goes back to obviously Star Wars and Star Wars movies, but also playing games like Homeworld really sort of cemented my thoughts on the idea of that genre as a whole. And today it's still one of my favorite things I seek out. I play games like Elite Dangerous and Stellaris from time to time, and it always brings me back to those late 90s, early 2000s video games, which were really cool. Homeworld 3 itself is actually releasing early next year, so something I'm very excited about, and something you'll probably see videos from me on as well. And it's just a really enjoyable franchise. They did release Deserts of Karak, which isn't something I'm going to play, I don't think. I have watched someone play through it because it's basically a prequel set before the events of Homeworld 1, so I've watched it and kind of understand the lore. I watched someone called the XP Gamers play through that. I'll link his channel and that playlist if you're curious about that game. But what I didn't like about that is that it was on land and not in space, and for me the draw really is space and moving around that 3D area and kind of experimenting with that. But I wanted to talk a bit about this because it's a game that's really important to me, and it's something a little bit different for the channel. Most of what I've featured is FPSs, so I thought I'd actually talk a little bit about another genre today. So is this a franchise that you guys are familiar with? What was your first foray into video games? Or even what was your first game in multiplayer? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Give me a like if you have, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next video.